I think it's what you brought up in the beginning, right? You said it's about not losing face, Lian, and then it's also about suku, our
Mm-hmm.
ability to see bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sort of ingrained in our culture that so much of our strength comes from our ability to endure. But what was a survival mechanism for us, and it's probably the reason that we made it through all the things that happened in Taiwan and over here. At some point, though, I do think it becomes a maladaptive
Yep.
survival mechanism. And so I'm grateful to you for using your energy and your passion and your network to surface these stories because it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for that.
In 2019, Vicky Tsai made headlines when she sold her company Tatcha to Unilever for $500 million. What the news coverage doesn't tell is the story of how she endured trauma after trauma, from bullying and being called a racial slur by her teacher in Texas, to frequently experiencing sexual harassment and assault on Wall Street, to surviving 9/11 and the Twin Towers, to being used as a prop during an internship at Procter & Gamble, to having people take credit for her work at Starbucks, to being asked to leave her own company that she built from the ground up. Vicky is a definition of success, as well as a definition of survivor, and she is unapologetically sharing her story with us today. Through every chapter, she has found a way to survive, adapt, and keep moving forward. As she puts it, so many of us, especially in the Asian American community, are raised at siku, to swallow pain, to endure, to stay small. But Vicky's story shows what happens when you stop shrinking and start reclaiming your narrative. This conversation goes far beyond entrepreneurship. It's about trauma, identity, self-worth, and the lifelong work of taking back her power. It's about the invisible burdens many Asian Americans carry and what it looks like to finally set them down. And it's about how one woman transformed surviving into thriving and turned her deepest wounds into the foundation of a brand that has touched millions. Vicky is one of the bravest, most open-hearted leaders I know, and I'm grateful she chose to share her story with me. Welcome to this episode of Hyphen Nation. I wanted to have this conversation with my friend Vicky Tsai because so many people in our community have been raised to tsiku, which I've written about in an essay, and it's about sucking it up and just dealing with it. Whether it was verbal or physical abuse in our own home or racist abuse outside our home, we've been raised to feel small, to feel like an outsider or foreigner, to doubt ourselves, to play in certain spaces and limit ourselves in boxes. My goal with my essays and my podcast has been to make people feel less alone and isolated and remind them that they aren't the only ones who feel this way. By bringing these important traumas to light, I think we give them less power in our lives and to hold us back. Vicky's is a story of resilience that I've not heard many like, and a story of overcoming trauma, but also fighting the demons that remain and the healing that needs to come after. She's one of the bravest women I've met because she's boldly shared these things about her life, ranging from the sexism and racism she's experienced that most of us refuse to talk about, but that more people need to talk about. Her story swings as far from the pendulum of trauma and success as anyone I've ever met. We first connected through our mutual friend Elaine back in 2015. I don't know if you knew that, but 10 years ago, when I invited you to a karaoke night for the Asian founder community that I started, we didn't meet until 10 years later at a book launch recently through our friend Jane Chen. And I'm so glad we finally met. Because we hit it off immediately and all the things to talk about. So thank you for being on the podcast today, Vicky.
I'm so sorry I didn't make it to the karaoke night.
You were busy with Tatcha. I think you were very, very busy at the time.
How about we still hold a date up to do that?
Yes. The place is closed now, but there's other places we can go. But yes, thank you for being the guest on the show today.
I'm so honored.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. Your parents immigrated from Taiwan for graduate school, and you were born in Missouri. Do you remember much of your time in Missouri?
I don't. I moved away when I was 2. I have like fleeting memories of, a moment here and there, but not much time.
So from Missouri, it wasn't straight to Texas? Was there something in between?
We moved to New Jersey, and I was in New Jersey from the age of 14.
And your mom, was she working at restaurants then too?
My mom only worked in restaurants when they were graduate students for money. And then when we moved to New Jersey, she worked for like AT&T Bell Labs.
Of course. That's where everyone worked. And your dad was also at Bell Labs too?
My dad has always been at Exxon. He's a computer programmer.
Still, to this, he's been at Exxon the whole career?
He was there for, I think, 37 years. He's
wow.
A little while ago.
Wow. Okay, yeah, Exxon. Oh, and that's how you ended up in Houston or in Texas. Was it Houston or where?
Yeah.
Got it. And so you moved to Houston when you were 13 after New Jersey?
I was 14. It
14.
was right 14, yep.
Okay. When you were growing up in New Jersey, was there more diverse? Was it more Asian? Because depending on where you are, there are more Asians in New
Yeah, we
Jersey.
were really lucky. My parents found, a community of, Taiwanese, families. I think they're almost all Taiwanese, and I think we drove on the weekends, like, an hour to go see them,
Yeah.
centered around a church, and we weren't
It wasn't
Christian,
in
but
New Brunswick, was it? Was it the Taiwanese church in New Brunswick?
it might have been. I
Yeah,
had
I went to that church.
we were playmates when we were
We
little.
could talk. We could talk about this another time. But yeah, a lot
So,
of people
yeah,
came from all over. Yeah.
we drove pretty far on the weekends to be with other Taiwanese kids.
Oh, cool. And then you moved to Texas, and I mean, from what I've read, there
Oh,
was not
I
great. Not.
want to
I know.
go.
Oh
No.
man, so that's a big shock. Yeah, especially when when you're 14, you're going to high school, you move to Texas. Like, what was your first? I mean, you've shared about this before, but what were your memories of Texas when you first got
The weekend that we moved in, I remember my brother and I went to McDonald's to get some food for the movers because they're working so hard, and I remember when we were, walking into the McDonald's, these kids looked at us and they screamed, "Go back to where you came from." My brother probably doesn't remember it, he was probably only 7 at the time, but he looked at me and he was like, "New Jersey?" And I was like, "I don't think that's what they mean." And then in high school, I regularly remember being called a chink. People would pull their eyes, and yeah, I just didn't participate in high school in any way. I just sort of watched it from the sidelines.
And you had a teacher who said something also racist to you
I think my teacher was actually the one who called me a chink or chinky.
in front of the class? Wow. And people, you said people spat in your direction and all sorts of stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, it was my economics teacher, and, I had to leave class to do something one day. When I came back, I remember it was like a bad '80s movie. The kids had taken my shoulder bag from my school, and they hung it up on a tether pole, so I couldn't reach to get it off, and then when I looked in the window, there was, like, this one window, into the classroom because our school didn't have enough classrooms for everybody, so it was like a
mhm,
mobile home that they put us in for the
yeah.
extra flow. So I see the kids all out the window. They'd locked the door so I couldn't come in, but they're pressed up against the window, all these kids, and they're all pulling their eyes. And I remember being like, "Ha ha," and
Wow.
just get off.
Did you ever talk to your parents about this stuff? I guess you didn't really tell them about this stuff. You just swallowed it. Yeah. I mean, and then tell me about the dance. Like, what was, like, you were invited to a dance?
So for the most part, I didn't participate in any of the dances. It was assumed that nobody would ask me, and so my friends didn't even bother to ask, "Are you going?" But there was this one boy from a different school who I'd met at a party, and he's so sweet, and he had asked if I would go to his homecoming with him, and I was so excited. And then he never called, and I just never heard from him. And then I found out from a friend in common that when his friends heard that he had asked me, they made fun of him. They called him the Asian connection, and so it just didn't happen.
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
dance in high school.
I mean, I guess I know parts of Texas are not diverse, but I was really surprised because I know a lot of Asians from Houston. Like, was this like further
So
remote?
we're an hour outside of
Oh,
Houston. It's
that's
in
why.
Woodlands, and right now I think the Woodlands is
More.
a much bigger city, and there's much more diversity, especially
Yeah.
from the, Latinx community,
Mm,
but at the time, no Asians.
yeah.
I mean, I looked through my yearbook to double check my memory. I see, like, a handful
Yeah. Yeah.
out of out of a high school class of I think it was 500 people per class.
Oh,
So, I think
wow.
there's maybe 3 or 4 in my class.
Oh my gosh, wow. I mean, going from New Jersey to that, I can't even imagine. So that was, I mean, growing up in that and I mean going to high school in that, which is already a tough enough time as it is, it sounds like it was really traumatic. But then you stayed in Texas and went to UT Austin.
I did.
You didn't try to escape? You didn't try to escape right away?
Are you kidding me? Of course I did.
Yeah.
I told myself, I'm gonna get myself out of here. I'm gonna get back to the East Coast. I'm gonna go home." And I just identified as being the smart kid.
Mhm.
Or I tried to be. So I studied as hard as I could, and I did
Yeah.
all the sports, the leadership, the
Mhm.
the competitions, and I got into nowhere.
Mm.
I just got rejection after rejection after rejection, and the University of Texas had to take me because I was in the top 10% of my
Oh,
class.
it's required. Yeah. It's automatic then.
Yeah, I got rejected from every college.
Wow. And so you transferred to Wellesley after a year? Is that, or how long? After 2 years. I mean, going from a big state school, which is very different culture, to a, single, like all women's, like liberal college, small college in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Like, what was that like for you? I mean, it's very different worlds, but in the Northeast, I mean, what was that like?
When I first went to the University of Texas at Austin, I had a real chip on my shoulder,
Hmm.
and I thought, you know, this is this wasn't even my safety school, like, how did I end up here?
Hmm.
But I ended up having the best 2 years of my life. Like, if I could wake up tomorrow and be one age and do anything one day again, it would be to relive a day at the University of Texas. I met the
Yeah.
best people. I had incredible experiences. I transferred only because I realized that, I wanted to study economics and I wanted to take a crack at Wall Street,
Hmm.
uh, and I didn't think that UT Austin was gonna be a feeder to Wall
Hmm.
Street.
Hmm.
So I moved out of necessity, and I think I was also sort of still missing the East Coast.
Hmm.
So I actually found Wellesley initially, I found it to be, um, really small and quiet. It's also a dry town.
Hmm.
I a school of 50,000 in Austin
Yeah,
where
partying. Yeah,
it was amazing, and
yeah.
so I went there and I was like,
There's
no,"
nothing here. Yeah, yeah.
but I came to love the experience as well. It was incredible.
Well, I mean, I feel like your experience already just through high school and college, there's a lot of resilience to change because those are the pivotal times where you're like, okay, well, I'm moving to a new high school, and then sophomore year, leaving behind all the friends you made from freshman and sophomore year to a new school, completely new school. And I can only imagine if, if there's drama at an all girls school, but new girl coming in to people who've already have all these friends coming in junior year. I mean, those are hard transitions, especially for someone in their, late teens, early 20s to experience. So you kind of already had experienced a lot of change in your life.
There was a lot of change, in many ways, though, I've always been really lucky where wherever I go, I end up meeting incredible people who become lifelong friends.
Hmm.
But I think part of that too is we learn, I think, as Asian Americans early on how to be a chameleon
Mm,
because we have to code switch so much
yeah.
between when we're at home and when we're outside of our homes.
Hmm.
And so, I just would land in these new places and observe the environment. If I thought I could sort of be a chameleon and slip into a skin that would be, workable in that new environment, then I would do it. The only place where the chameleon thing did not work was Texas because everybody kinda looked like Britney Spears. They're all
Yeah.
cheerleaders and
Yeah.
beautiful people. There is no amount of chameleon that's gonna work for this.
Yeah. 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 You can't hide.
Yeah, the rest, yeah, it was great. It was actually wonderful.
And so then after that, I mean, actually back up. So in high school, you were first introduced to like the world of beauty because you were helping your mom out when she was opened this first store, right?
Yeah, my mom opened up a store called Vitative in Chinatown in Houston where they sold high-end cosmetics and skincare, to the community. So it was Shiseido, and brands like that. And so I worked, there on the weekends and the summers and helped her out. But I was also, I was very much an ugly duckling in high school. And so I would go into there and I would just sort of imagine, like, what if I can just find the right combination of things? And
Uh,
maybe it would be like one of those great 90s movies where you go back into high school and it's like, "Ta-da!
yeah.
I'm on."
She's all that like type of all those teen movies we watched. You worked. She opened the rest. I mean, she opened that store because you said that the department stores people. I guess they were probably predominantly white. Also, and people didn't feel comfortable. Like a lot of the Asian customers didn't feel comfortable going in those stores.
Yeah, especially in Chinatown communities
Mm.
where if you have a first generation immigrant where they don't feel super comfortable with the English language. And then also, they just don't shop. At that time, they just didn't shop a Macy's or a
Yeah.
Nord's. The environment was too intimidating.
Mm.
So going to a beauty store in Chinatown felt a lot more comfortable.
How long did she have that store for?
I don't know how long she was invested in it, but I think it's still
Oh
there.
wow,
She
wow.
probably stayed invested in it for a decade.
Wow. And so you learned entrepreneurship from seeing your mom early on then?
My mom is definitely a serial entrepreneur, and in my family, I realized that there are serial entrepreneurs, but Taiwan is full
Yeah,
of
I know.
somebody in Taiwan's an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
No, totally. No, my mom was also the entrepreneur, so that's how I first saw like someone starting their own company, and she was actually had her office right off near Wall Street, so I would go in and help her out too in high school. She did like a international freight forwarding business because she had been working for a firm for a long time, and she was basically doing all the work. So she's like, my dad was like, why don't you just do this yourself? Like, why are you making money for all these other people? And
That's
so, yeah, so she did it herself. She's like, I already know how to do everything, so I'm just going to do it. So I would help her out. But yeah, I think that's where I first saw the kind of, I got the bug to say, oh, I want to be my own boss too someday. Probably,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
never bug. I just fell into it, but
True, but it was the DNA was in there already. So after Wellesley, you did go on your path into finance, and you went to work in fixed income trading at Merrill Lynch. So what was like? You went from an environment of all women at Wellesley to super broy like male environment at banking and that finance world. What was that like, and how did you survive that?
yeah, especially the fixed income world.
Yeah. Oh, is that even more broy?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Wow.
What was that like? The first year, I just tried my best to understand the language around me and try to figure out, do I try to fit in? Do I try to disappear?
Mm-hmm.
It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's aggressive, and there's very few female traders, especially on the bond floor, and so it was really difficult to even figure out how to carry yourself on that floor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was gross, but I just thought I'll keep my head down, and luckily I worked on structured credit derivatives, so I was able to just, like, focus in on my spreadsheets all day
Mm-hmm.
and interact too much
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the market makers. But I do remember this one really sweet guy, offered to mentor me and teach me, about distressed debt, because then I moved to a distressed debt trading desk, and we went to dinner and, I'm guessing he was in his 50s at this point, and I'm 22. And as soon as we sat down, first he ordered for me, and I thought, "Oh, that's strange." And then while I was eating the food, he was drinking really fast, really hard, but he kept on saying, "Say you like it, say you like it, say you like it." And I've got, like, spaghetti, like, falling out of my mouth, and I was like, "I like it." And then I realized we're on a date, and he was not telling me anything about finance, he wasn't telling me anything about how to be successful. I'm just, like, on a weird, awkward date with this man who keeps on trying to say, he wants me to say I like it while have a mouthful of food. And then, when we got in the car, I was like, "Bye," and he was like, "I'll come with you," and I was like, "No, it's okay." And then when we got to my place first, I went to go open the door, and he sort of leaned/toppled slash toppled over me and tried to give me, like, this messy kiss, and I opened up the door and I ran out the door. And some version of that would happen nonstop.
And these were colleagues? Like these were people that you worked with on a daily
These are
basis?
these were senior people.
Wow. And I'm assuming you didn't tell HR because HR wouldn't have done anything about it,
I just accepted that that's
the way
what
that
it was.
things were. I mean, and I mean, there was another incident with a manager, I believe, at what I don't know if this was at the same at Merrill or somewhere else, but like
Yeah.
a manager who talked about your bonus. Like what happened there?
So when my second year at Merrill Lynch, I so Merrill Lynch is 250 VC Street, one of the World Financial Centers, which is in the same complex as the World Trade Center. So I was working there and down there when the planes hit. Yeah, so we were gone around 9/11, and then I had to go back down there to work for the next year. And the only view that I had was the hole that they were
Mm,
extending the body parts. So after a year of that, I was like, I got to get out of here. So I took a job at a company called KBC Financial Products in Midtown. There used to be some DE Shaw guys,
hmm.
and I was a credit derivatives trader there. And my manager, he was just this pervy guy who played video games all the time, and I
Oh,
think
the
he might
quants. Yeah, the
want
weird quants. Yeah.
he's want, but he would send me messages all the time, like, "Hey, you look good in those pants," and I just ignored him. But then, the guys would go out and get drinks afterwards, after a trading day, and I didn't want to, but I also felt like I had to have some sort of camaraderie with them.
Hmm.
So one night I went with them, and he was drunk, and, he pushed me up against a wall, and he put his hands up my shirt, and I froze, and I didn't know what to do, and then he said, "Did you know that we're deciding bonus numbers next week?" And I was just like, "Oh my god, I can't." So I froze, I just stood there, and then when he finally got off of me, I went home and I decided I have to quit next week, and so I waited until my bonus cleared, and then I went to the head of the trading desk and I just said, "I have to go." I made an excuse up about my fiancé being sick, and he was very, very, very sick. He got sick after 9/11, and I was his caretaker, so it's not that that wasn't true, but that's not the reason I left.
Hmm.
and I just bounced.
And again, there's no accountability for any of these folks. I guess back then people just did whatever they wanted and got away with it.
Whatever, yeah. Although that particular guy, he ended up defrauding the company out of many, many, many millions of dollars and fled to India.
Oh my gosh.
I think he's on an FBI wanted list, but
Wow.
some version of that story on Wall Street 5, 6 times.
Totally. And all the dirtbags are either in jail or they get away with it and they're running some places now. So
Nobody that did this to me, I never reported it.
yeah.
And
And nothing would have been done anyway, probably, because
nothing would have
yeah.
been done.
Yeah.
Nothing would have been done. I
Yeah.
think something was done, which is there was a part of me that internalized it, and there was a part of me that thought that I had done something to deserve it.
Hmm.
So I became very, very, very conscientious about my makeup and my clothes and how I carried myself and how I interacted with people because every time it happened, I just assumed, foolish me for putting myself in that position or for giving them a reason to believe that was an option. So I
Yeah.
just myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just you. It's what people like accuse women of all the time when they're victims of this. It's like, oh, well, you asked for it or you dressed that way and what would you expect would happen kind of thing. And you talked about like you shared that, I mean, 40% of women who experience sexual harassment from their male colleagues and probably much higher because people don't report it. I mean, I feel like, and we've talked about this, that Asian women are probably, I mean, I don't know if they're statistically higher because it's not, these numbers aren't there, but are more targeted because we're of the stereotype that we're quiet and we won't fight back. That it's this power dynamic. Also, I think it's also it continued throughout your career, not just in finance. It's been in other industries, so it's not just limited to banks. Let's not kid ourselves, but that there's a power dynamic that Asians are more likely to submit to their superior and authorities because that's how we're raised. Like in I think Confucian households, you respect your elders, respect authority, and senior ranking people. So you're less likely to resist, and you are more willing to accept the abuse. I mean,
That is it,
it's
by the way. I initiated some research with Harvard Business School
mm,
years ago, and these 2 women did research, and it's cited in our Harvard Business School case study on Tatcha, that Asian women are estimated to be the most likely to be sexually
mm,
assaulted in the workplace and the least likely to report it, and
mm,
reason I say estimated is because there's such little reporting of it. It's very hard to say, but that's what they think, and I believe it because I've been on the receiving end, and also because we've been fetishized for
yep,
so long. I do remember one of the first songs that, like, break through in my mind as a breakout hit in the I think it was in the '90s was, 2 Live Crew, "Me So Horny,"
hmm,
and, with a woman singing in, I guess, what's supposed to be a Vietnamese accent.
yeah,
People people sang that to me, including little boys, my entire life.
mm, hmm,
Not my adult life when after the song faded out of popularity, but during its popularity,
yeah.
I heard it constantly. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it can go all it goes all the way back to the military occupations in the Philippines and
exactly.
Vietnam, is where they they just used women and treated them like that, like property and stuff. You're a prime example of like we just talked about it. Like you didn't report it, so and you
Support it.
got it all the time, right? So you're one of the statistics that were like, oh, you didn't even count a statistic because you didn't report it. So
Yeah.
I mean, and think about the extent that you actually endured that and you didn't report anything. I can't imagine how many more women have done it. And I mean, that's why, I mean, I wanted to bring it up because I don't think a lot of Asian women do talk about this and they just keep it inside. It's for them, a point of shame. But like you said, you blamed yourself for doing something wrong. And it's like, that shouldn't be the case. Like, it makes me so mad when I think about all these women who've endured this and they don't say anything. They don't fight back. I think they might leave other women alone because they're afraid of them. But, I want more people to be afraid of Asian women, if that makes sense, and leave them alone in that way. So, but I think having you bring it up in a Harvard Business School case study is incredible. Just reading this case study and all the things that you bring up in it, I'm like, wow, this doesn't get talked about. Like when I was at Stanford and reading we had Harvard Business case review studies also, but I don't remember any case study looked like this. Like your case study was next level, and that's why I told you I was like, I need to get this into the hands of every Asian American person to read because you lay it all out there. It's incredible.
I appreciate it. I that case study is awesome because the professor who wrote it is awesome, and I've known him for almost 20 years now. I would say that contains 10% of the true
Mhm.
story, everything in there is true, but it's 10%
The
of
whole
the
story.
really happened during that period, mostly because of NDAs and lawsuits. But yeah, it's been a wild, wild ride.
Also, because the case was already 20 pages long, so it's
Exactly. Exactly. I very much regret not speaking up.
Hmm.
I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel like anything positive would come from it. But 47-year-old Vicky, if she met 22-year-old Vicky, she would have given her very different advice.
Mhm.
And 47-year-old Vicky, who trains martial arts 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, if anybody touched me now, or if anybody touched my daughter, or any woman who works for me, I will rain holy hell on them.
Mhm.
And so I want Asian women to be able to move through this world with ease and with comfort.
Mhm.
I'm done with that.
Yeah. No, that's me. Same here. I mean, it's about time. It's sad that it takes us this long to find that power, but I think that's why I write these essays and do these interviews because I'm like, I want the younger. It's like me talking to the younger version of us, saying, "Hey, listen to us now. Tell you what we wish we had known back then.
Yeah.
Learn Muay Thai and kick." Like,
Yeah, yeah. Ladies learn martial arts.
yes, yes, that is the lesson for today. Is ladies learn martial arts. And speak up. I mean, I think like a lot of us were not taught not to speak up, and it's a different time now. So through that, so you left New York and you went to Cambridge to go to Harvard Business School to get your MBA. It was a fresh start. It's business school is a fresh start for many, as we both know, to pivot their careers and go in a different direction. Engineers go to become finance people, and finance people go to become marketing people, and you can transform your kind of career path by going to business school. And you interned at a beauty brand expanded Asia. I don't think you can say who. Are you able to say who? You don't have to.
Probably cool, but I worked for Procter& and Gamble.
Oh, okay, you worked for P&G. And so you went and you interned there and you were trying to expand, was it Asian products into the US market?
Mhm.
Can you share about your experience while you were doing that?
Yeah, I remember a few things very distinctly. One was realizing that the strategy was to create insecurities for women that had not existed so that they could sell them more products.
Mhm.
And as a Asian woman who already had tons of insecurities about my looks, that really felt gross to me.
Mhm.
There's actually like a psychological engineering of things that happens to try to make women feel less than so that you
Mhm.
can things. That was one thing. 2 was the products were largely marketed as whitening. Those are
Mhm.
the words on there, which, has its own history and
Mhm.
that goes all the way back to colonialism. But I remember saying at the time, my recommendation at the time was do not tell women in the US that they should try to be whiter. That's not going to fly here and it's not okay. So that was another thing. And I ended up getting a meets expectations review for that work that summer. And when there's like sort of two parts to the review, there's the deliverables and then there's like your leadership potential
Mhm.
markers. And it was the leadership potential marker where I just got zeroed out
Mhm.
and I asked for feedback. Why? What could I have done better? And I was given no indication of any concrete evidence of what I'd done wrong or what
Mhm.
could be better. It's just, and it was the first real time that I got indication that I did not have leadership potential in corporate America.
Mhm.
Wall Street, for better or for worse, is a little bit of a meritocracy,
Yeah.
especially,
Yeah.
but
Your results, you get paid. Yeah.
they are what you are.
Yeah.
But this time I was like, "Oh, wait, something that's completely out of my control that is not quantifiable can end up directly impacting
Mhm.
path here." And and so of course I internalized it and I was like,
Mhm.
"I'm out for this place." So that was another thing. And then the third was I was asked to participate in a PR event, and I felt so special that I was an intern that got to go to a PR event. I was like, "I must be doing something right."
Mhm.
And that's then I realized, "Oh, this is an Asian brand, and I'm the only Asian person in the room." And, I felt very trotted out for a
Mhm.
and most of the people in the room the event was in Miami, they assumed that I didn't speak English. And so, they kept, uh, bowing to me and, and telling me that my culture was beautiful. And at first I was stunned, so I didn't know what to say, but I realized that that's why I'm there, and that's
Mhm.
paid for my blowout and my styling
Oh,
and
wow.
me to wear, and I thought they were just being nice to me.
Yeah.
I really well, I'm in character right now.
Yeah.
And so I joined these celebrities that they'd invited for lunch, and the whole lunch, like, didn't really speak because
They thought
they
you were
I
you
really
just you played the
pretend to me.
yeah. If you open your mouth, you would speak perfect English, and they'd be like, "What?"
I don't wanna be like, "I'm from New Jersey."
I know. Oh my
I just,
goodness.
yeah, I just stayed silent the whole lunch.
Wow. Man, I was like, I would love to have gone back and if you spoke spoken perfect English, someone was like, "What?" You should have just done it just to see reactions. You're like, "What? I'm being used?"
I
No,
should have
that's
my Texas accent that
right.
would've
You're like, "What?
confused
Double."
everybody.
Double what? No, but I mean that performance review, I feel like it bothers me because so many people. I mean, I got those too, and it's so subjective, and I hated it because I was like, what do you mean? Like I don't have these things. You can't even explain why. It's just I'm supposed to take this, but I just think that so many Asians get these same performance reviews, regardless of our actual performance. It's just like the stereotype that they can just push on us. I mean, I honestly feel like it's a great way for them to keep us in subservient positions where we do the work for them, whether it be in consulting or banking or law firms. You're like, you don't lead a potential, but you'll be a great worker bee for me. So I'm just going to keep you there because I benefit from taking credit for your work. So, I mean, this is how it's done. And so we just take it because what's the recourse we have for performance reviews? Like, no, I'm a good leader. I mean, the biggest one is like, I quit. If you can't see my value, then I quit. I don't want to be here. But I mean, I can only imagine the listeners and people who hear this are like, this all sounds so familiar. You know, they know this story. You know, they've lived this story. And so sadly, this is not the first time it's happened to you. So we'll get to that again at another job. But after this internship where you were used as a prop at this show, you get, I mean, it impacts you mentally and even physically. So you end up with acute dermatitis because of that whole experience.
Yeah, I developed acute dermatitis. It was contact dermatitis from what I put on my skin that
Mm-hmm.
summer. I was using things from that brand, but also other brands that I was doing competitive benchmarking. I also think, in retrospect, that I had chronic stress was just loading up
Sure.
inflammation in my body from 9/11, from being the caretaker for my husband by then,
Yeah.
all of that together. So I think it was both, but it was really, really, really bad acute dermatitis. My
Yeah.
whole face was bleeding and blistering and scaling. I had
Yeah.
eyelids. So it did show up like that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you've lived like 4 lifetimes in 25, 26 years already with 9/11 and all the stuff that you had to go through. So, yeah, I mean, I imagine your body was like responding to all that like stress and trauma. And so, but then you like this, all this is a reflection or like a physical like representation of the self doubt that was creeping in and like losing self confidence because you've been hearing this feedback. But after that, after graduation, you went to Starbucks. Is that right? It was right after you graduated
Right.
from HBS to launch their first consumer products business in China. And now this is the second time or second job you've kind of connected to your Asian roots. Was that a coincidence or was that intentional?
Yeah. I did it on purpose. On one hand, I chose Starbucks because I read Howard Schultz's book, Pour Your Heart
Mm-hmm.
Into It. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a company out there where it's really built on a value system.
Mm-hmm.
The value system on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Couldn't seem to find one at Procter, so I thought, "This is incredible." Maybe I just had to go to, like, a founder-led company
Yeah.
that's small, but I didn't have the experience to get into to a job like that. They were looking for people with McKinsey experience or
Mm-hmm.
consumer marketing experience. I had derivatives trading in one summer. It wasn't quite enough, but then I saw that they were making a major push into Asia, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought, "Well, maybe for once my Chinese background could be an asset instead of a liability."
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, everybody was sort of looking to Asia for growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I boned up on my business Mandarin during business
Mm-hmm.
school and pitched myself in that way, and was able to get a job
Mm.
launching a products business in China.
And what was it? What did it feel like to work in China as an Asian American?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I had spent time in Asia before,
Yeah.
as
Summers and
but I didn't think of anything of it at the time. I was 8. This time I went and I spent my time in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Beijing, and Shanghai.
mm-hmm.
And, I just remember being amazed at looking like everybody, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt a sense of comfort with the
Yep.
cultures that I couldn't place my finger on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you signed our letter in the Wall Street Journal, and it was during when I wrote that letter, I was in Taiwan during COVID. And so people ask me, like, oh, how'd you have the courage to write this? And I was like, well, I was in Taiwan. I felt like I had superpowers. I felt invincible. Like I didn't have a boogeyman over my shoulder telling me I couldn't do something. And so I was around my friends who started Twitch and YouTube and Rotten Tomatoes and like world concert violinists and actors. And I felt like we're pretty awesome. But I also was around people that looked like me and I didn't feel different. I didn't have that kind of anxiety of proving myself to someone and all that. So, with that burden lifted, I felt like I had superpowers. You know, I brought that up before. I had one of my black classmates from business school. When I wrote that, he said, you know, that's how Langston Hughes and Nina Simone felt when they went to West Africa. They felt like they were invincible because when you're among, you know, people that look like you don't have that extra added pressure, and it just feels really liberating. So I imagine, you know, that's how, you know, you must have felt when you're actually in Asia for a prolonged period of time. You're like, oh wow, this is pretty great feeling.
It was incredible, and I was only at Starbucks for a couple years, and I would go 2 weeks Seattle, 2 weeks Asia, just 2 weeks Seattle, 2 weeks Asia. But I did remember thinking, when I'm in Asia, I feel alive, and when
Hmm.
I'm Seattle, it's not quite the same. Seattle has a very high Asian population, and I worked with a lot of Asian people at work, and so, it was like a
Still
gentle.
different though. Yeah.
Yeah, except for
Yeah.
I had a stalker there.
You had what?
I had a stalker in Seattle.
Yet another story. They didn't work with you at Starbucks, did they?
The stalker?
Yeah.
No, he just stalked my house, broke in repeatedly. He probably put cameras in there.
Oh my
He
gosh.
poisoned my dog. Yes.
You again went through a lot, and you're not even 30 yet. So, but so you're spending time in Asia, and then you have a plan, and you're about to launch, and you have your meeting scheduled with the legendary Howard Schultz himself. Tell me, how did that go?
So I worked like a crazy person to launch these consumer products in China in a year and a half. This work should have taken 3 years, but we only had a year and a half because they wanted it done before the Beijing Olympics.
Mm.
Work ended up getting, pretty big accolades. The front page of the Ad Age, front page Wall Street Journal Asia. It was a pretty significant launch. And there's two things that happened. One is, during the whole time that I was working, I didn't have a manager. A manager was brought in for me, um, and she was let go very quickly. And in retrospect, I think race had something to do with it. She was Japanese. And then I had to like navigate my way through and do this alone, without a manager for the next year and a half. The week before we were supposed to present to Howard Schultz all of the work, by we, I mean I,
Hmm.
a manager was brought in from another department. She was a white woman, and I had to teach her everything about the launch so that she could present it to Howard. And I do remember thinking at the time, like, oh, that's interesting. How does that work?
Yeah.
But, who knows? Maybe you have to be like a director or above to
To speak
present.
to him. Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. So then I just remember working really around the clock to make everything easy for her to present. And, I was putting like sticky notes on the back of like boards so that she could read
Yeah.
it. And he actually saw right through it. And I
Mm.
was really impressed because he started asking questions that she couldn't answer. And then they started being like, maybe Vicky knows. So the launch goes really well. And I get all these internal awards at Starbucks for the achievement. And it was to the point that it was almost uncomfortable. And they would ask me, I would get invited to speak to different departments to talk about the work. And then they would have like a little ceremony where I got like a framed thing with an award. So that amount of attention was uncomfortable. Howard had me present to his board of directors. And then when one of the board of directors wasn't at the meeting, he had me call that one board of director and present
Wow.
to him. So it was a big deal.
Why was it uncomfortable?
I think maybe because I'm not used to getting any attention. And also it felt like the accolades exceeded sort of the work to me. I also felt like maybe I just got lucky that this went off so well.
But do you think other people ever feel that way when they get their awards? I'm like, I feel like
Maybe not.
we do. I feel like we feel.
Could be an Asian thing, yeah.
I think it's because we're raised to be so humble and not get attention,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
we don't lean into it.
Culture.
Yeah. Like, I mean, most people would flaunt it and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big deal because I got all these awards," and I'm like, "Oh, like lean into it." But we're like very awkward about it. We're like, "Oh no, 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 it's not a big deal." We like to play it
Yeah.
down. We play it down.
I would say it's like it was the team, but there was no team.
Yeah.
But then I got my performance review all within the same weeks as
Mm.
getting awards, and I got the same performance review as I got at Proctor, and it was that the work exceeded expectations, and then sort of this leadership potentials piece did not meet expectations, and that the box was blank.
And it was from a manager that you didn't even work with, a VP that you didn't even work with.
Who I had like 2 meetings with, who I had to explain things to half the time,
Yeah.
and so I asked him at the time, I was like, "Can you please help me understand what this empty box is about?" And, he wasn't able to say. He couldn't say anything. And I remember I went back to my desk that day, and later on, this really sweet lady from HR came over and she said, "Hey, can you remember to sign your, performance
Oh,
review,
no.
and, so we can file it and pass along?" And I said to her, "I won't sign this because I don't agree with it." And
Good.
that was the first time in
Good
my
for
life
you. Yeah.
for myself, and she seemed like,
Like, you're not supposed to do this. You're
"Guys?"
an Asian woman.
Yeah,
Just
um,
sign it.
yeah, but I felt comfortable with her, maybe because she was a Black woman, so I
Mm,
said, "Meeting with you," and she said,
mm.
"Yeah." And so I told her honestly about how it felt, and she was like, "Do you want me to see if I can find you a job in another department?" And I said, "Maybe," but at that point, I was getting recruited by a
Mm.
friend, venture capital, to join a startup in Silicon Valley, and, I was like, "You know what? Screw this place." So I left,
Yeah.
and amazingly, Howard Schultz found out that I left, and he called me on my cell phone
Uh-huh.
a few weeks later, and he asked me to come in and talk to him, and he said, I don't understand why you left." And the other part of the story that I've never said out loud is when I was in China doing the launch, there was a manager there who came to the hotel after the launch event where a small group of us were, in, like, the hotel restaurant bar, and, at some point in the night, he put his hands down the back of my pants and, was caressing, like, the area, between, like, my butt and my back, and I froze again, and, I've never said this out loud to anybody, but he worked in Seattle, and he had this amorphous job that people couldn't really put their hands on, so I realized I don't know when I'm gonna have to run into this guy again, but it could be a
Yeah.
and so I just remember thinking, I've got this stalker who keeps breaking into my house and maybe stealing my underwear and recording me. I am getting a performance review that is completely not in line with the other
Yeah.
feedback I'm getting. And then there's this guy in the building who seems to have some sort of power. I don't know what he is or what he does, but I don't know when he's going to put his hands all over me
Yeah.
again. And so Howard Schultz was like, "Why are you leaving?" And I just blamed myself. And I said, "I don't fit in here."
What? You didn't tell him all this stuff?
No, I've never told him.
But you had nothing to lose. You were leaving.
Well, the thing is, the people that I worked for, consumer products is a small industry,
Mm.
marketing is a small industry, and I didn't know how any of this would follow me.
Yeah.
And, that whole adage when you're young, not everybody can help you, but anybody can hurt you. You
Yeah.
never bridge. And so I just blamed it on myself. And I said, I'm just like a little weirdo. I'm like a cat in clothes here. I don't fit in, but I've loved the experience and thank you. But I've never told.
What'd he say?
He said it doesn't make any sense. Nothing.
Yeah, see, it didn't make sense. And now if like, when he hears this podcast, which he probably never will, but it'll make more sense to him. But I mean, I feel like that's the same thing as here in Silicon Valley, the culture of like, if these things happen to you, you can't say anything because the ecosystem is so small that you might need them to invest in you in the future. If you're a bad actor as a VC, you're like, oh, well, they might tell other VCs and I can't raise money again. So you keep your mouth shut. So the cycle of abuse continues because people can like use that power and influence and it may or may not happen. You just don't want the potential of that happening. And I don't know if it's more that Asians don't speak up about it, but imagine like a lot of women who've been like, assaulted in the valley, they can't say anything because I'm like, what if I have to get a job at this place? Or like the circle, the community here is so small. I imagine, I mean, it's small, and I mean, Seattle's very small too, but I'm like, here, it's incestuous. So it's really hard to avoid these people
Yeah,
again.
and it's one, who gets believed, and two, at this point, it's happened to me so many times in my life,
Yeah.
I think it's my fault. So I think, you know what? I'm the one who went to the bar, and I'm the one who
You
had
should be able to go to the bar.
and the thing is, it was just with, like, the little launch team in
Yeah, your
China.
team. That's
It
not,
was like a celebration thing,
yeah.
and we didn't get, like, crazy. We were just standing there having a couple
Yeah.
celebratory drinks, but in my mind, it was my fault.
Yeah. Do you
Even
still
though
believe that?
no, but
Okay.
29-year-old Vicky,
Okay.
was the
Yeah, yeah. I mean, imagine, and that's
was like, "Fuck them, come back to
yes,
me now," but
exactly. And
23
you really want to see that guy again. No, but
oh,
this
me to be in the same room with these
no,
guys.
I know, I know. We could let's arrange that. But I mean, I feel like so many people that age now are still taking it because they are in, especially in our culture, that these are people who are higher ranking than you, and you can't say anything bad. And I imagine for the second gen immigrants, kids who are going to be going to these jobs, that pressure of the parents like losing face or losing your job or whatever happens to you, and you thinking about how that'll make them feel if that happens. I mean, yes, both you and I quit our jobs at big name companies, so we already disappointed our parents. But to lose it that way, especially if it became bigger news, how it would bring shame upon the family and all the other stuff. We think about that. I don't think a lot of other kids in Western cultures, I don't think they necessarily think about that. They're like, once they move out of their family, their household, they're on their own. But we still, I feel like we carry that burden with us. I mean, it is a Asian family thing. Like we represent our family and the lineage, and named like name carries on and whatnot. But it's kind of, I don't know. I hope the next generation doesn't. Like I want to talk about this stuff because I don't want them to ever feel like this.
I think it's what you brought up in the beginning, right? You said it's about not losing face, Lian, and then it's also about suku, our
Mm-hmm.
ability to see bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sort of ingrained in our culture that so much of our strength comes from our ability to endure.
Yeah.
But what was a survival mechanism for us, and it's probably the reason that we made it through all the things that happened in Taiwan and over here. At some point, though, I do think it becomes a maladaptive
Yep.
survival mechanism. And so I'm grateful to you for using your energy and your passion and your network to surface these stories because it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you. I mean, I think of those things as a strength for resilience and endurance, but I also think those are the things that paint a target on our backs to make us easy targets for robbing us, beating us, like treating us like this, or sexual assault, and all these other reasons. And I mean, I want to use this platform and the things I do to make sure that people don't see us that way, because it's how we are depicted or seen, and changing the narrative of that. And that's why I want to do the Jeremy Lin documentary and show us like, hey, this is who we are. We're not what you think we are. We can break out, like we're not your stereotype, your assumptions. We're so much more than that, and we can do the impossible.
I hope that everybody watches that documentary. I think it was very, very, very important.
Yes, thank you. And I think you can't see the Emmy awards back there in the background there, but
This is all me. God.
yeah. Okay, so we haven't even gotten into the Tatcha stuff yet. Like this has been, like, we've talked about all this stuff, and now let's get to the Tatcha base. Oh, so you leave the Starbucks to join a startup, and it was all of, I believe, 4 months you were there,
If even.
if even.
It's a blink and you miss it.
Yeah, but it was, not for nothing. You were focused on sustainability and focused on personal care, and it made you think about what you put on your skin. And it kind of, I mean, you had multiple incidents that inspired you along the way, but it kind of made you realize that there was a opportunity here. Is that right?
Indeed, yeah. I learned about the bioaccumulation that can happen when you expose your body to different chemicals, how many chemicals go on your body and into your body through personal care, whether it's shampoo and deodorant or skincare. It made me rethink about what I was exposing future generations to because you pass things along as a mother. And then also, I had acute dermatitis. So I had a firsthand experience of what happens when you put things on your body that don't sit right with it. And so I realized there was a real need for something that was a safe alternative because I would become pregnant then. I would be
Mm-hmm.
breastfeeding soon. I'm still using steroids and antibiotics every day because
Mm-hmm.
of the exposure that had led, to a complete breakdown of my own skin. So it was really just a sense of need at that point.
And it was 2009 that you. When did you leave Good Guide?
I left A Good Guide in 2008, I think. Gosh, so long ago. I think 2000,
Yeah,
and then I sort of cast about for a while, 08, 09, and then '09 was when I launched the
yeah,
blotting.
September. Got it. And I keep trying to say like it's Abura Torigami. I just know origami, but Arubarame. Blah blah blah. But you first discovered that actually on a stopover from through Narita, like going from Starbucks from China to back to Seattle, the paper, the blotting paper. I remember using that also when I don't know, my mom got it for me back then in high school. Like they had papers
All
in
little
Taiwan
kids.
that
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So for my all my acne and stuff. But yeah, it's I mean that kind of was the first product you launched. You there's the origin story of you selling your engagement ring back to pay the $30,000 minimum to buy the minimum inventory or the papers to sell. But you gave birth to your daughter like 4 months after that. Is that right? After September, it was January.
Yeah.
So you're pregnant during this whole time
I was pregnant the whole time. I was also working 4 jobs,
just to pay the bills because
for the bills, and then the day that we launched into retail was the day that my daughter was born, so let's
you
say
have health insurance.
twins. My husband at the time was
Okay,
still working at a corporation.
Symantec or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love the story of how you got PR for this for your launch because I think I mean it's I want you didn't ask permission or follow the traditional rules. You found a side door to make it happen. I mean that's how the best founders succeed, and they don't let others dictate what can and can't be done. But like you somehow got like your Tatcha onto all these into these all these magazines. Like, can you share how you did that?
I got really lucky.
Yeah, okay, well that's too. That worked too. Stop saying it's luck because you did actually proactively do something and email people and go to the I mean this happened.
Well, thank you, thank you. So, I tried the traditional route. I tried to hire PR agencies, but they all turned me down, and I was also at the same time trying to get some retail distribution, and that wasn't working either. The feedback that I got from the market, both from the agencies and retailers, was Asian beauty is not aspirational in the US. And that was a quote.
Hmm.
And I was like, wow, you just said the quiet part out
Yeah.
loud. Okay.
Ah.
And they had pointed out that no other Asian beauty brands had ever succeeded in really breaking through in the US. And Shiseido, it never really broke out of
Hmm.
Chinatown. Now you can find them in a Macy's and stuff, but it's still really a Chinatown anchored brand. Two had all of Procter and Gamble's weight behind it and million-dollar counters and Kate Blanchett, but that wasn't breaking through. Shu Uemura was shut down in the US at that time by L'Oreal. So there's no evidence of any Asian brand ever breaking through.
Mm-hmm.
The market had decided it's because Asian beauty is not aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Asian women are not beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's just like, "Bail out, don't do this, I don't know what you're doing," and also
Mm-hmm.
with your little blotting paper. But I had, like, 10,000 blotting papers, so what am
Yeah,
I
what do
gonna
you do?
I got at
Yeah.
least these. And so I managed to get in contact, through an intern that we had who was really great. She found Daniel Martin, who was an awesome up and coming makeup artist who did a lot of editorial work and worked with really great women. And as soon as he got the blotting papers, he was like, "I love these, and can you send me a bunch? I need to use them on my shoots, and I'll share them with my clients." And I said, "Absolutely." And Daniel is Asian American.
Mm. Oh, see.
He was really our hero. And about a decade later, he would join us as our global head of artistry. And he became the first Asian American global head of artistry for a beauty brand in history.
Wow. I mean, full circle. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this will become a theme, but an Asian American helping out then and later on more, but it is a theme. And so you managed to get into, I mean, so what happened after that? You got him on board, but then how did all the PR stuff started happening?
He got samples out to people, and they started reaching out and saying, "What's the story?" And then I would send them little press kits, and then they would cover it, and we just started getting coverage everywhere. And then a friend of mine from Wellesley was a producer at the Today Show, so she, handed it to some people on the Today Show, and it got covered there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the press started be getting press. I'm just so grateful to the editors. The
Yeah.
editors has been like our heroes.
Yeah.
And then the internet had just really started getting going with social media, and it was free. And so I would find people who had blogs that I liked.
The original influencers. Yeah.
And I would just offer to send them some things, and
Yeah.
they covered it quite
Took
a lot.
off.
It went up from there, yeah.
So this is the second time you chalked up successful outcomes to luck. Like the Starbucks stuff was luck. This was
So
luck.
it's
I mean,
interesting.
I don't think it's not a coincidence, and I don't think you're the only person who does this, but I feel like we have trouble taking credit for the things that we do.
It's
And and leaning on, and that's why the awards feel like they're not yours, because, or that you were self-conscious about it because you feel like, oh, it wasn't me. Even if you were going to give credit to the team, there was no team and it was you. So you have no one to even, you can't even point to someone else. If it's Steph Curry playing solo, fine, one thing, but he has a team, but you were doing it yourself. I feel like we deflect. And I shared this before when I went to that Stanford business school class and Professor Pfeffer asked me to introduce myself. And I've mentioned this, like that he said, "Hey, Dave, can you introduce yourself to class?" And I was like, he's done amazing things. Tell him, Dave, what you've done. I was like, I did this and that. It's no big deal. It's not and he's like, stop it. Like, why would you not, like, people make up, people like brag about things that they haven't done. You actually did these things and you don't even talk about them. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's really bad that I can't even take ownership or pride in the stuff that I've done and take credit for it. 'Cause you know how many people out there take credit for stuff they had nothing to do with. And so I feel like we try to play it down for whatever reason, that we weren't the ones that were the reason, the success happened. And so
Dave, you're
I don't
so
know.
insightful. It's interesting that you say that because I never called myself CEO. And on my LinkedIn that I used to have, I don't have one anymore, I never listed Harvard Business School.
Mm,
And even now, when I meet people for the first time and they ask me what I do, I'll just say I am failing at attempting to retire, but I never tell people what I do.
yeah. And that's making you continue to make yourself small when you are so big.
I never thought about that. You really, I'm going to have to take that into therapy. Can you come with me?
Okay. Whatever, whatever it takes. I do think we play small even when we're big. It's like, it's crazy that, like, even when you get to the point where you've like otherworldly success, like, oh, I'm just this, I feel retiring. Like, oh gosh, why? Like, I mean, there's no wonder people think we're meek because we act that way. And
You're
so
right. You're
but
right.
yeah, I mean, and then the other side, the flip side of that is we've talked about the reviews, the performance reviews, and the meets expectations or no leadership, like blank space for why you don't have any leadership skills. But I mean, I think we've been gaslit. So many people are gaslit for so long that we couldn't, like, it couldn't be possible that I'm a good leader. It can't be possible that I'm actually like responsible for the success. It's got to be something else or luck or whatever. Because our parents have never puffed us up or made us think should be proud of anything. Because I mean, our parents are oftentimes our biggest critics, and they tear us down. And not all the parents, but a lot of the Asian parents too, because they don't want us to get big heads. Like, I remember I was braggy as a kid, and my parents would try to keep like, your head's too big. I mean, literally and like figuratively. But they're like, I mean, yeah, but I had swag back then, and I was totally cocky. But my parents like, your head's too big. You need to like settle down. But I think most other parents wouldn't want to take that away. Like, I wouldn't, if my boys were cocky, I say, be as cocky as you can be. Like, I do not care because I want you to have that energy everywhere you go. Like, that's CEO energy. And so I don't want to ever make them like, I don't want them to ever make themselves small. And it was funny. I heard this comedian, I brought it up before, but like, they talked about how, you know white parents will tell their kids they can be anything they want to be. Like, our parents will tell us what we want to be, and white kids will tell their like storks brought them from heaven to their parents, and they were like the gift from God. Our parents, my dad told me I got picked up from a garbage can, but it's more the like kick you down a notch kind of thing, so you're not too overly like. But I'm like, we needed that confidence. Why'd you guys? And it worked. I mean, look, whatever they did somewhat worked because we did end up doing pretty well, and maybe drove us to prove to them that they were wrong. But now we all deal in therapy and having podcasts because of this stuff.
You bring up such a great point though, Dave, because and you're pointing out things that I clearly have a blind spot for, but I got those performance reviews. Part of the reason I left Silicon Valley, that startup, was because I thought I was going to get fired
Mm,
because I remember thinking the founder thinks I'm an idiot
mm-hmm.
and I don't know what to do about that. So then Tatcha became, what it became. And then we have this Harvard Business School case study that you referenced. And I go back every year and it gets taught. One of the students pointed out a couple years ago when they were debating the case study, what if it was true? And what if it was that in those environments, she does not have leadership potential in those environments?
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, it wasn't discrimination, it was just truth telling. And I will say, it was a white male. I will say in that moment, I have to admit that I felt like the 27-year-old version of me in Harvard Business School again
Yeah,
was not at the time a safe place for women, was not
yeah.
a supportive place for women. And I remember feeling shame in that moment for a second, like, oh my God, like he saw it for the truth. But then I said, it's a fair possibility, right? N equals 1. And so I said, by show of hands, if anybody has ever gotten this kind of performance review in this room, can you put your hands up? And it was all the women of color.
Women.
It was mostly in that particular class. Hold your hands up, and I said, "So look around this classroom right now and tell me what you see in common." So
Hmm.
I all the Asian women who made it to Harvard Business School have
Yeah.
such potential.
Yeah. Or you
Or
assholes are the ones who keep telling giving these reviews because you
and maybe the reason we're saying it out loud, to your point, is because when we hear a message in surround sound, it is really hard not to internalize it.
internalize it. Yeah.
And then we have to do the work of deprogramming ourselves from our
Yep.
own internalized racism, our
Yeah.
own internalized misogyny. So thank you for pulling these stories out and pointing out that, even now, I have a blind spot for my own
Yeah.
behavior still.
Wow, he actually said that? The nerve to say that to someone who succeeded. And it's like they boldly will say this as someone who's going to be more wildly successful than they ever were. And then they're probably only there because their daddy got them into that place. And it's like, you only got the job. Because, I mean, I'll be honest. At school, when I looked around the room, like, I was one of my friend and I always talk about this, but like, very few of us came from nothing to get to that place. Most people had, like, were on third base already. And so they had the connections to get them the jobs. Dads were the CEOs of the companies, whatever. And I'm like, I didn't have any of that. I mean, like, we had the same story and we got to theirs. You know, I think it's pretty bold for someone who's done probably nothing like of merit in themselves to just try to say that. But that's the kind of gaslighting we hear, all the time, and we start believing it. And I don't know. I feel like I said, if you get beaten down enough, like you start
Yeah.
actually believing it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I will say I actually still see this today. As recently as last month, I have been pulled into interviewing scenarios where the more highly qualified person was going to get passed over because frankly there was I'll call it generously, I'll call it unconscious bias. And when I was pulled into it and I would look at, the resumes of different people and I'd say, "Wait, I'm sorry, why aren't you hiring the one with all the experience?" And the reason that was given was something amorphous. I don't know if
yeah,
this person has vision.
yeah,
This person, I don't know, they just don't excite me.
yeah,
I don't know, they seem to be missing that thing that we're looking for in leaders.
yeah,
And then I say the quiet part out loud, which was, "I think that you've got a blind spot and potentially some unconscious bias, and here's why." And then I do my best to advocate for the experience in the room
hmm,
and be colorblind to that experience.
hmm.
But it still happens.
I mean, it's especially frustrating when you grow up like in metrics based, results based families, and you're like, what is this fluffy vision crap, the garbage you're talking about? Like, what about the results and what have they done? Like, show me the facts. But I mean, in our society today, it's about feelings, not facts. So you can make up these stories and narratives about people, and they're like, okay, well, I guess you might be right. You must be right because I feel like you must be right. But I mean, I get countless messages on LinkedIn and people see me in person I've never met before telling me about, they got passed over partnership at McKinsey or at Goldman Sachs or all these different places. And it's the same story. It's like, I'm told I don't have the leadership skills or this or that. And I'm like, man, I'm getting tired of hearing this because how the heck did you get to that place if you didn't have kind of these abilities? Like, I feel like the common thread is always that like we're perceived a certain way. And that's why honestly, that's why there is a bamboo ceiling. And I do get people who say, well, Dave, you can't change the system. Like that's how it's going to be. I'm like, yeah. But if I can tell people how the game is played and they understand, and if it's not the right place you're at, because they're never going to see them, they told you explicitly, they're never going to get promoted there, then quit and see how much they suffer from, like they hurt from it. Cause a lot of times they will hurt and they'll realize it later, but they don't deserve you if you've been, not been recognized or acknowledged for the work that you do. But we don't have enough, a lot of Asians, I feel like don't have enough agency because they fear quitting a job before they have another one. And so they're like, I'll just suck it up. That's suku. And like maybe someday they'll see me and maybe someday I'll get promoted. And you're like, you literally will never get anywhere here. I mean, they've told you to your face and you're still there.
I just
So
now that you're letting people know about things like the bamboo ceiling, I didn't hear that term for the first time until 2021.
yeah,
I had no idea that Asian Americans are statistically the least likely demographic to be promoted into America, and that was
women too. Yeah.
before AAPI hate, and with demographics specifically, the East Asian women are the ones who are really at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
Didn't know that less than 0.01% of corporate directors are Asian American women or Asian women. Like, I had no idea, and so all those things that had happened to me, the sexual assaults, those performance reviews, all of the feedback that I got over and over and over and over and over again that I'm not a leader, I just took it as true.
Mhm.
And so then there was like this really big divergence between the success that I was having on paper with the Tatcha and then media coverage. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, I'm getting more and more and more messages about how you're not that.
Yeah.
And so that delta between the actual success and what I'm feeling
Yeah.
inside, that is what made up imposter syndrome. So then the imposter syndrome got worse as
Mhm.
success got bigger.
Mhm.
And until it hit like a crisis point and I fired myself from my own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that let's get into that. I mean, well, before we get into that, you were trying to raise money because, I mean, in any CPG product, you need cash and capital to buy more inventory to sell, and that's the never-ending like spiral of CPG. But you were in Silicon Valley, and VCs would not give you money because they only want to give to hoodie tech bros, and so it was very hard to raise. Tell me how you ended up raising cash and how you met this. Well,
Brad Murray.
Gene Moo,
Oh, gee.
Gene. Yeah, how that?
Yeah, so this guy named Brad Murray from my business school joined on as a co-founder and took over the fundraising process for me. I wasn't thinking of it consciously then, but now I've seen the statistics that if you have a male co-founder, your chances of getting funded go up like 800%. Uh,
Did you consciously actually decide to get a
it's
mail because of that?
I didn't know the statistic at the time,
Oh,
but I
okay.
do remember thinking, "I bet this will help."
Oh, okay.
And he also came in the private equity industry, and he also was the best co-founder
Yeah.
partner I could have ever asked for. I
Yeah.
still count him as one of my best friends.
Yeah.
He was a true angel in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
So he started going out there and trying to help us fundraise, and we ended up doing friends and family for most of the journey until the
Mhm.
very end. And we were only able to do it because of him. But the first angels that we had were all Asian women. So the first one was this incredible woman, Jean Moo, who lives around Silicon Valley. I gave a 4-minute pitch to a group called the Golden Seeds, which was supposed to be women investing in women.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
And they offered the most usurious terms I have ever seen from any investor ever. Brad and I were like, no, we're
Yeah.
not going to do that. But Jean came up to me right after the 4-minute presentation, because it's like the limit that they give you. And she said, I believe in you. I will invest in you. And I never had a stranger come up to me and say, I believe in you. And I never had
Mhm.
people that I'd known come
No,
up
say
to me.
yeah, your own
And
parents. Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Who are you? Why are you so sweet? And then she immediately introduced me to a group of Asian women who all invested. They introduced me to more Asian women who invested. And like the Asian women, it was like Avengers Unite. Like they just
yeah, the
felt-
mafia.
and they just started writing me checks without knowing me. They
I
were
mean,
amazing.
that is like that gives me chill because I'm like that the community coming behind you, and especially as an Asian woman feeling that like these women behind you, it I have to imagine it gives you like it lifts you and gives you like it feels makes you feel like you have superpowers. You're like, oh, like all these women are giving me they're not VCs, they're giving me their own money and
They're
telling me
not
they believe in me.
these, and I found out ever since because they've become my role models, my best friends, like, these are my second family. I found out since then that they actually don't do angel investing, and beauty girls, we had nobody else in common except for this one intro. I'm so lucky that they decided out of nowhere to just do this.
Again, I don't know if it's luck, but I think you you pitched something that they wanted to believe, and they had to believe in. You had to believe in something, so it was you. But I mean, I love that story because I mean that's how Hyphen started. It was literally like like all these Asian executives and founders and others who backed investing in these companies, and now I think the fund has come from that. But it's like people don't realize how strong like the network and community is when you need them most, and yeah. So I love that story about
They
how
were amazing, and they
yeah
didn't just write one check, they came in for every round. There were 7.
yeah
They stayed in it with me for the full decade that we were in.
wow
And then they also showed up in ways that I could have never asked, like holiday time. They came and sat at my kitchen table with me and packed orders with me.
wow
I needed help. They sent their kids to work for me,
wow.
and I couldn't afford to pay their kids. They're like, they'll intern for free. They were going into a new country. I don't know what to do in that country. They call all their friends
They
and
have
family. They just opened up their Rolodex, they opened up their time, they opened up their hearts. They're
It's like
just
the
incredible.
Auntie Adventures, the IE Adventure Avengers.
Indeed,
They
indeed.
all, that's amazing.
IE Adventures.
IE Avengers, right?
What it was, yeah.
Right? Oh, all the IEs came out for you. And so at this point, everything's going great. In 2013, you get on QVC, the skincare expansion grows, you explode. And you're also doing a lot in funding. You started a nonprofit, or was this the Beautiful Faces, Beautiful Futures education fund that you funded over 385,000 days of school for girls? Was this your foundation or a nonprofit you started?
So there's a leading nonprofit that's based in San Francisco but works
Mm.
globally, and it's called Room to Read. And
Yes.
their big, hairy, audacious goal is to end illiteracy in our lifetime. And they have a special fund for girls because girls are usually the last in line to get a chance to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So not only does their program help kids stay in school in Southeast Asia and Africa, but for the girls in particular, give them programming and support social mobilizers who are kind of like social workers to teach them about rights over their body, social emotional health, help them advocate for themselves if they don't want to do, childhood marriage, all of these things that they need to have healthy minds, healthy communities, healthy bodies in addition to staying in school. We fund that program, the part that's specifically for girls. So the Beautiful Faces, Beautiful Futures Fund is how we fund our partnership with Room to Read.
Mm-hmm.
Every purchase funds a day of school for these girls.
Very
So
cool.
this Christmas, we're crossing 15 million days of school.
Wow.
Who
So that
could,
was
yeah.
that's I mean, I guess this is old data because it's like on 400,000 days of school, but that's incredible.
Yeah. And then as a company grows, the impact grows.
That's amazing. And then you were also like, I guess, on the Inc. list, fastest growing private companies, second back then. And so, and the first, and oh no, second fastest growing company led by women, and the 21st on the list of fastest growing companies. So that year was amazing. 2017, you take a private equity investment, and they brought in operating partners who recommended that, well, they didn't, they recommended you step down, but it sounds like someone else told them to. Can you share a bit about that story?
Yeah, there was two partners from Castanea who led the investment and were on my board, and they were great. Janet Gerwich and Steve Berg. I really have nothing but wonderful things to say about them. They brought in operating partners to help support, and one of those operating partners, he was really aggressive, I felt. And he did an assessment of the company. He sort of did HR and legal and other things. And then he called me one morning when I was on my way to work. My husband was driving, my daughter was in the back seat. I had him on speakerphone, and he said, "Our recommendation is that you step down as CEO and that we bring in an executive leadership team to take over the company. And our minimum growth rate the first 8 years was 50%. That year was going to be 85%." And so I asked him, if you think that's the right thing to do, I'm open to it. But can you tell me what you have learned about the company to make you think that this leadership team is not capable of running the team? And he raised his voice and he said, "If your ego is so big that you are willing to hold on to the title and hurt the company, then we can have that conversation." And my husband, my daughter in the car,
Yeah.
and like there was two voices in my head. One voice was like, "Gigs up,
Yeah.
he's just good for him for saying it out loud
Yeah.
that I'm not qualified to do this job." And there was like a measure of relief in there.
Mm.
The other part of me, I actually spoke up first, and I said to him,
Yeah.
I said, "I'm going to repeat back to you what you just said to me." And I said, "You just said to me that if my ego is so big that I'm willing to hurt my company in order to hold on to this title, I would never do anything to hurt this company. I love this company. So don't ever say that to me."
Good for you in front of your daughter too.
Yeah. And then I hung up with him. I called the other two partners. I said, "This guy just said this to me." And if they had said to me at the time, "He's speaking out of hand. He doesn't represent what we feel. You make this choice," then I would have kept my job. But they said, "It's really up to you." And we do think that if you brought in someone to deal with scaling the company, then you could do the things that only you could do. And I perceived that message as a gentle way of saying, step aside.
Mm.
Because having a big ego in culture is, it can get you killed back
Yeah.
old in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
I was like, "You're right. I would be so lucky to work for and learn from other people and watch them lead this company in a way that I clearly cannot." And so I
Mm.
decided.
And so you were gaslit again. like sounds like sounds like yet another person like made you doubt yourself, and that imposter syndrome came up again. Despite the fact that, and I've heard so many of my friends who are founders and CEOs that were asked to do this. I mean, again, I know others that like, they're like, my friend Justin was the CEO of Iterable. He brought it to like $2 billion, and he was, they asked him to maybe step aside and be CTO while they bring in like an older white guy to be CEO. And he's like, he took out the board member. He bought out the board member who said, like, suggested that, and then they fired him later on with some questionable reasons. So I mean, he literally brought it to this level stage, and he could have kept going, but now the company was worth a lot less because they got rid of him, all because they wanted someone else in his place. And he's actually the people that I started Stand With Asian Americans and wrote that letter in the Wall Street Journal for, because he actually stood up, and they didn't like that he was being so vocal and being so, like, advocating on the side and doing other things. So I mean, I feel like I've heard this numerous times from different people, and it's just infuriating, because I'm like, you literally proved, like, this is your baby. Why would anyone think that you would want to hurt your own baby? And this person's basically a consultant. I mean, this is like some chump who comes in off the street and gives his
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
right? And so old me probably wouldn't. No, actually, old me probably would have yelled at him and I would have got fired. But like, I was like, I feel like not enough people have that kind of energy, and I get it. I mean, because when you're in the position, you also are. There's a lot of money on the table, and they're telling you this is how you can take care of your family and do all the things you need to do. And you're probably thinking, oh, I get to spend more time with my daughter and, like, do the things you want to do.
What I was actually thinking is that a minority deal is full of pain tools that are
Mm,
into the deal structure.
mm-hmm.
People think that minority deal means that you have control. Well, you pick your poison. So,
Yeah.
um, as long as I continue to grow like a maniac, then everything is fine.
Yeah.
If growth slows,
You're gone. Yeah.
this drawer of pain tools starts coming out, and
Yep.
you could take out a perfectly healthy company. Private equity is not there to be your
They're
friend.
not friend. Yeah.
And so I also remember thinking, when this felt like a threat, if I can't keep this growth rate up for the company for any reason, are they going to use it against me? And then
Mm-hmm.
could my company get destroyed because of my insistence on.
Yeah.
And so that's really the biggest reason why I think I called the strategic who had been interested in buying us, Unilever, at that
Uh-huh.
time. I think I called them within months, few months of our private equity deal closing,
Mm.
saying, "All right, let's go."
Oh wow. So did the PE firm didn't know this was you? Was you just going, like, you stepped down and you're like, okay, I want to sell it to you guys?
The second that I stepped down as CEO, I was like, "If I don't deserve to run it, then I don't deserve to own it, so let's go."
Good for you. I mean, yeah, it's like almost like you're in a hostage situation. The PE firm's like putting you in like a gun to your head, like, okay, well, if this is how you want to play, let's go. I mean, good for
And
you. And then,
my side of the street, because the board members that I had from that firm, they were great. Like, I have to really own that I was ultimately the one who made that decision, you know?
sure, but I'm not saying you're coerced into it, but it didn't sound like a conversation, really. I mean, but you did have the agency to choose. It just seemed like it was kind of decided, or like they made you choose. I don't know. But you ended up selling to Unilever, and then they brought you back in after that idiot, like, screwed up, and
The
like,
the new leadership team brought in by private equity didn't work out, and
yeah,
left 2 years, 2.5 years in, right at the beginning of COVID, and the company had lost all momentum,
yeah.
and there was tons of turnover. And there was also like a cultural collapse within the company. I
Hmm.
listening tour, and one of the things that people said that really broke my heart was, this company has lost its soul.
Hmm.
And I love these people.
Hmm.
These people like my family.
Hmm.
So the idea of them losing their jobs and being unsafe in the middle of COVID, no, there was no vaccines or PPE at the time.
Hmm.
I just couldn't let that happen. And so I just stepped back in and did it again.
And so at that time, who was leading it when you took over? Was it a male also, or no?
It was yeah, the whole leadership team, pretty much men. There was one woman, and then they were all gone. So my
Yeah.
husband went back in, and I think we covered 9 jobs that year.
Wow. What is the statistic that you shared about in beauty brands, like what the leadership of, like, most in cosmetics, was it like 8 out of 10 are like men?
No, more than that, more than that. So that year, 2021, when I was running the company again, I had to start recruiting for the next leadership team, because I knew that I could only do this for 1 year. That 100-hour work week pace.
Yeah.
And so as I started recruiting, I remember being surprised that I was only getting resumes, hundreds of resumes from the recruiting firms of one demographic. And this is an Asian brand where all of the growth is going to come from Asia. And so the job profile said that they had to really have a lot of experience with Asian culture, Asian distribution strategy, Asia. And so I was like, how is it? How what's happening right now?
Yeah.
And what they pointed out was the issue was one of the things that we clicked off as a requirement was that they had to have prior C-suite experience, and that prior C-suite experience within the beauty industry is only white men. So I had automatically closed my population down to one very tiny pool
Yeah.
with that requirement. And then Women's Wear Daily ran an article about, how are things going in the beauty industry at the leadership level? And they had pointed out that of the top, um, I should look at the statistic. I think it's the top 20 beauty manufacturers in the world at that time. There was only 3 female CEOs. None of them were women of color. One of them was the daughter of the Revlon founder. I think the statistics are the same or worse now, actually.
Wow.
So that was the first time that I realized that there's no female leadership in beauty at scale.
That is crazy.
It's largely women who start the businesses.
Yep.
And when capital comes in, they replace us with men, and that's the rest of the story.
Yep. Same happens to you. Yep.
Yeah, but it's also when I learned about the bamboo ceiling.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wait, how did I get to the tender age of 42,
Yeah.
entire career in the business world in America and not know any of these things?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we see it, but we don't notice it. And we're like, how come there aren't more folks that look like us as you move further and further up? But then, I mean, I think when you actually see the statistics, it's crazy. And it's in every industry. I mean, it's in government jobs, it's in finance, it's in law, it's in medicine. I mean, it's every industry. Yeah. And so, I don't know, like, does the stereotype that come that we can't lead because we're never in leadership positions, or does it come because we can't lead? I mean,
it's self-fulfilling. It's a
yeah,
big cycle, right?
yeah.
But, you brought up taking credit earlier, and there's a couple things that happened at that time that I found quite incredible. One is I'm in the middle of trying to turn this company around. Now I'm starting to get angry. It's API hate, signing your letter, like doing all these things. And so the veil is falling from my eyes. And all of that internalized stuff,
Mhm.
all the isms there, it's starting to fall away, and I'm starting to see everything from a new perspective. And then at the same time, I'm getting these calls from people, and they'd say, who is this guy? I'm going to say Bob. That's not his name, but who is this guy, Bob? He keeps doing talks about how he was a major investor at Tatcha, how he came up with your distribution strategy. He really makes it sound like he was the guy who got this, but I've never heard of him. Who is he? And also, he's going out. He's a VC. He's going out and raising money and trying to make investments in other beauty brands off of this story. And I was like, what? And I heard it over and over and over again from people. This guy at his highest peak owned 1% of the company, that he syndicated out to his friends. I never even had a meeting with him outside of
Wow.
Dre hello. Like, he was
Wow.
talk to me. Brad
Wow.
dealt with him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's annoying, but I ignored it. I was like, whatever, failure is an orphan, but success has many fathers. I don't have time for that.
Mhm.
And my PR person reaches out to me and he said, who is this other guy? I'll call him Baby Bob. And I said, I don't know. I've never heard of this person before. And he said, well, there's this article about how he was an investor and operator at Tatcha who helped scale and sell the business. And I said, I've never heard of this person in my life. So I Google him, and there are pages and pages and pages of media where this is his story, and an SEC filing.
What?
And he won a business school competition at Wharton off of this story. And I was like, I've never heard of this guy in my life. So then I go back to my email and I start just searching his name, and I realize he was an intern for one summer for
Not even for you, for Bob.
Bob. And so I felt like the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, where I'm
Yeah.
trying to put my company back together. I'm trying to protect the people who work in there. It's COVID. It's API hate. I'm recovering from a miscarriage. And then plus lawsuit from one of the guys who worked at the company and left it in shambles because he wants more money because he hasn't taken enough yet.
Oh,
And discovery from lawsuits, and just having to really swim in the fetid
oh gosh.
trash
Yeah.
of this world.
Yeah.
And then now I've just got these flying monkeys around my head, just
That's
pulling
yeah.
me. I felt like I and my company were like a carcass for them
Yeah.
to feed off of.
Vultures.
And
Yeah.
just was ready to blow.
Yeah.
And I finally started saying enough.
Yeah.
So I called Bob and I said, "Take my name out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can list that you had an investment in here. If you say anything more than that, I
Sue
will
you. I'll
put
sue
you on
you.
Plug and Fast. I
Yeah.
will tell everybody that you are nobody." I called Baby Bob and I made him sit through an hour-and-a-half presentation of what it really was like to build this company, including all of the personal toll and loss that came from it. And I said, "You are gonna call every single one of those editors and fix those articles. You're gonna fix that SEC filing. And then from here forward, anytime somebody wants to learn how to raise money, I'm gonna send them to you and you're gonna teach them. And otherwise, I'll put you on public blast." Like, I'm just like, I'm
Good.
so
Terminator mode. Yeah.
sick of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you clearly took getting to the breaking point where you finally were like, okay, you're in boss mode. And the funny thing is, like, even at this point, like you had the FU money to be like, I can just walk away from all this and just like be
But it
done
was
with it.
never about money. It was just about
No.
the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, even with that, like that energy, like how come it didn't, I guess you always had that energy, but it didn't come until that breaking point. Like, why do you think it took that to finally this Muay Thai, like kick ass, like don't
Mhm.
mess with me, take your name out of your mouth, like yeah.
I think and it gets back to what you're saying too about, like, if you realize you can't succeed, you gotta create your own thing.
Hmm.
Younger Vicky, 14, 15, 16. By the way, I found my diary from when I was 15 and my first internship in a hospital. The doctors put their hands on me.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually submitted that in an essay to my teacher who was running the internship program, and she didn't even say anything. So, like, this has been going on my whole life, but young
Yeah.
Vicky just, like, took on all the blame for it and just thought, "This is me. Like, there's something wrong with me." When I realized in corporate America, I am never gonna make it here. It's completely out of my control. What I'm realizing now is I started Tatcha as the place that I needed in the world to exist and
Hmm.
that I was proud of and feel safe.
Hmm.
'Cause within the 4 walls of that company,
You can
no
control.
me can hurt us.
Yeah.
Some of the people in the company are people of color.
Yep.
They're women, they're diverse in lots of different ways.
Hmm.
But within Tatcha, my goal was always to keep them safe. And when
Hmm.
we go to work, we fund girls' education and we keep
Hmm.
so it's like the little place in the world that I needed to be safe and good.
Yeah.
And so when I was in that world, everything was okay. But then as the company got bigger and people see money, it
Yeah.
brings those elements back to you. And so, I didn't have enough self-love and self-compassion to want to protect myself or even to know that I needed
Sure.
to protect myself. But plus 25 years, and then now it's all these people that I love that I am protective of,
Hmm.
community, plus my daughter, plus these girls where we fund girls' education.
Hmm.
All of this mama bear energy that comes
Mm.
out is because I might have been willing to take it for myself. I'm
Hmm.
not willing to let this happen to other people. And so, now I'm just in permanent terminator mode. And if anybody tries to hurt the company, my family, our community,
Yeah.
I'm not the same person anymore.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
fucks given. You're like, I'm just gonna do what you
0
need. Yeah.
forgiveness now.
Yep. I mean, I feel like we're meant to meet now because I have that same energy, and it is like once I realized how many people have reached out to me and how many like how important it is to have this voice. I'm like, I want everyone to feel this way. I want people to feel less than. I don't want people to feel othered or question themselves or be gaslit. And the whole reason I even started Hyphen was that I saw the data on the bamboo ceiling and I saw how bad it was, and I said, if we're gonna be the only two places I saw that weren't in Silicon Valley were Pinterest and Nvidia, and both of them had parity for Asians being promoted. And I said, well, both of them were started by Asians. Instead of banging our heads against bamboo ceiling, trying to break it, let's build our own houses. And these are the houses that we can take care of ourselves and take care of others we want to take care of. But like, we won't be gaslit into, poor performance reviews with no leadership and a blank space there is not explained. It's just kind of this amorphous, ambiguous, like you're just not a good leader. I don't think we need to take that anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, I this your story you've gone through so much and you've shared so much about how you got through that, and I love that you ended up here in this place now, and that this is the Terminator Vicky mode is I'm here for it. This is this era is going to be amazing, but I do feel like the more we kind of build together and can make the connections, that makes a huge difference. I mean, I feel like the IE Avengers, like I'm not saying one day you'll be an IE Avenger yourself, but you're starting on that. Yeah, you're starting on that journey now. Yeah.
Because it's one thing to hear the statistics and feel helpless. It's another thing to have case studies of people who you could learn from. And I think the work that you're doing humanizes the success stories. Because sometimes when you hear a success story, it's like, I'll never be Jeremy Lin.
Yeah.
But what I love about your story, the other ones that you're highlighting, and I offer my own, is there's nothing superhuman about me. I'm not, and this is not me being humble. I am not more talented than the average bear. I am not more hardworking. I am not more brave. But if I could do it, then the generations behind us should be able to do it, and I will do anything I can to make it easier on them. Be easier on them.
100%. Yeah. Thank you, Vicky, for doing that for our kids and the next generation, but for so many now who are going to hear this story and be inspired to do the things that they didn't think they could do, and not think that it's themselves, it's something wrong with them. Because I think that's what I'm most afraid of, is that people will internalize the stuff that's been gaslit, that they've been gaslit to believe, and I don't want them to ever feel that way, because then they feel helpless, and the last thing I want people to do is feel helpless, and especially in this time, during this, what's going on right now, a lot of people do feel helpless, and I think that's how they want us to feel. And I never want that again for myself or anyone else. So thanks so much, Vicky, for being on, having this conversation. It was a long one, but I know everyone's going to really appreciate all this, and it's going to really lift up and inspire a lot of people.
My honor. Can I offer some closing thoughts for
Yes, please.
like action? So what helped me most was reading the stories of other people. So I love your podcast. I think that everybody should go find your essays. Where can they find your essays again?
DaveLu.com.
DaveLu.com. Thank you. I really, really, really especially loved your essays about power and about scarcity mindset. They opened my mind in ways that I hadn't connected the dots before. Also, you mentioned that we met at book launch. Jane Chen's book.
Like a Way We Break.
I think that's a really important book for anybody who's got some trauma work to do. And then finally, there's a really great book called Big Asian Energy.
Yes, I have it in front of me.
It's wonderful.
From John, yeah.
That one's like a how-to guide of navigating the corporate world.
Yeah.
All of these three things, if I had these when I was 25 years younger, I think that my inner journey would have been a lot gentler.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Thank you, Vicky. I mean, it's everyone do the work. It doesn't. I mean, it's worth investing in and reading these things and listening, and getting the therapy you need to figure out a lot of the baggage that we have. But I think it'll be worth it on the other end. I think what Vicky said is that we're not superhuman. People always think like we're special or not, but I mean, we're just like anyone else. I think it's a matter of a switch that's inside of us that flips. And I hope reading these things, listening to this podcast, and conversations like this will flip that switch for you. So thanks again for listening, and thanks for being on the podcast, Vicky.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Hyphen Nation. Please subscribe to my Substack at www.davelu.com and follow us on Instagram at the Hyphen Nation and LinkedIn at Hyphen Nation.